Hello, everyone. Welcome to Opinions New by Dr. Frank Tianxi. I'm Frank. Okay. In this episode, I want to talk about the six major social economical crises in China, or that's facing the Chinese Communist regime. Okay. Ever since the CCP virus and the Wuhan pandemic breaking out, the economic outlook of China is getting weaker, weaker and weaker, darker and darker. Right? And originally, the Chinese regime was hoping that while other countries of the world are struggling with this spread of pandemic and with economic, downturn, and then China can enjoy um, the only booming economy, making them the only of the world, right? But contrary to what they demanded or what they dreamed, that's not the case. It's not happening. Right? Now we're with more and more cases of pandemic, the virus, COVID-19 in Beijing, in the capital city of Beijing, and also half of China, basically 20 some provinces, over half of provinces are actually underwater now. Literally, there's a huge flood in 20 some provinces in southern China. And also the world market, it continues to be in bad shape. And that's also forcing China to lower expectations. The Chinese government is really good at using some acronyms to have they call it six stability, right? Six stability issues, right? Meaning they want to maintain stability on six different aspects of society, and then they change that to six guarantees, right? And to guarantee, they want to ensure guarantee certain aspects of society to maintain the same or maintain stable. Right? And then they talk about I also talk about this in one of my episodes. They want to use the street vendors, right? Promoting street vendors to save the economy. And now talk about the economic internal circulation of economy, internal circular economy, something like new term they coined, to describe that they want to use in domestic consumption as a way to stimulate the economy, instead of focusing on relying on export, which they cannot export anymore. Okay? Nowadays, the latest in development in the Chinese Communist deploy to stay in power is called the six preparedness, right? Or six preparedness, right? They're really trying to prepare for the final way out or final way dying, right? And that actually seemed to me is reflecting six major crises in Chinese social economic environment. Okay. What we can see now today is that the U.S. government is growing to be more and more tired and sick and tired of the Chinese government. And we can see that the Trump administration has lost its faith, trust in China's ability to realize, to fulfill its obligations in the phase one deal with the U.S. And the U.S. does not seem to show any interest. Well, Trump is now showing an interest in seeking the negotiation of second phase two of the deal. Okay? And also the decoupling of China and the U.S. seems to be accelerating. Okay? Also, the deteriorating socio-economic situation in China is forcing the Chinese government, Chinese communist elite, to backtrack, to to backtrack and beg U.S. for more time and space. And Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, is said to be in an effort to restore U.S.-China relationship back to normal, so-called normal. He actually made a lot of promises right? He has just made many promises, like in finance sector, and they can do. China is going to abolish all those many restrictions on foreign investment in securities, in fund management, futures, and insurance companies. They want to, instead of forcing foreign investors to be less than 50%, now they raise the limit to 51%. In other words, foreigners can have a major stake, a little majority in the ownership. And that limit will be eased completely next year by 2021, right? And even those infrastructure companies like railroads, railways, right, and power grids, power companies, they're going to abolish those restrictions on foreign investment. Looks like if these promises or promised uh, this concession is true, that means the recession of Chinese economy, the degree or the recession of Chinese economy is probably more, severe, worse than what we expected. You know. In fact, it seemed to me the possibility of a U.S.-China decoupling is getting, the possibility is getting larger and larger, bigger and bigger. Right? Also the possibility of U.S. withdrawing from World Trade Organization is getting bigger and bigger too. Right? Lighthizer, U.S. trade representative, has said something like, if the worldwide trade, it either requires a multi-level organization like WTO, or it needs a series of bilateral agreements, but you can have both. Yeah. But for U.S., we have seen that the U.S. has reached agreement with Canada and Mexico on this new USMCA, and it just passed and just become effective. It just become in effect. Right? And also, I believe U.S. is going to soon have bilateral agreements, economic agreements with major Asian partners like Japan or South Korea and Taiwan. Yeah. The European unions have signed over 70 bilateral agreements. Yeah. Now, really, China, everyone knows that China is not a market economy, right? And they actually give up on their pursuit of being recognized as a market economy. Now, as a non-market economy of China is really, excluded by all the market economies, major market economies. In China, recently we have seen that China and India has some skirmishes, frictions in the western part of the borders between the two countries. The war, the skirmishes, the fight actually was fought with stones and the sticks, right? And but through the little miniature fight, war, Chinese found that they tried. I don't think China tried to use that to really try to fight India at this time. That they try to just want to distract the world, distract the attention of the major powers. Maybe they were hoping to punish India a little bit, but turned out that India is rebound, reacting very violently, vigorously. Right? India is ready to actually have a full-blown war against China. Yeah. But the problem is, to China's surprise, not only U.S. and other countries, but Russia, they're all on India's side. Okay? Russia and U.S. are, as I said in other episode, are selling the most advanced weapons to India to arm China to fight to sell and arm India with the latest weapons technologies to fight China. And such a circumstance, obviously the Chinese regime has felt the pressure, from politics, political, economical, military, and all around, pressure from all those countries. Right? And that's why the Chinese officials, high-level officials, has proposed this the sixth preparedness strategy, or six preparedness, or that to me actually reflecting the six major challenges or crises the Chinese government is facing. Okay? This is from Mr. Zhou Li. Mr. Zhou Li was the former vice minister or minister of one of the Chinese Communist Party's organization, a department called I think it's called this kind of a party, um, kind of party for foreign relations department of the Communist Party. Let's put it this way. I can't put, I don't know the official translation here. It's just is the department within the Chinese Communist Party standing committee that's dealing with other countries, other political parties in other countries, kind of like foreign relations. Let's say Central Relations Committee or Foreign Relations Committee, right? Foreign Relations Department and the Chinese Communist the Central Committee. Right? He was Mr. Zhou was the deputy minister of that. Right? He's the one in charge, or he was involved with the Communist CCP's relationship with other countries, other political entities in other countries. Right? He in his proposal, he actually wrote this article about vigorously, get ready in six aspects to prepare for the worsening foreign external environment. Okay? And the sixth preparedness, the first one is the worsening of U.S.-China relations and also confrontation, escalation in confrontation. Second, external demand shrinking and supply chain broken. Okay? Third, the pandemic becomes the norm and the virus will stay with the humanity forever, for good, for a long time. Okay? Fourth, to get rid of the US dollar hegemon, right? And also the decoupling or unpegging of US dollar and Chinese dollar. Okay? And number five, in the global food shortage. And number six, global terrorist organization. Yeah. Of course, when the Chinese government officials, when they say preparedness, it really, is a synonym of their what they're afraid of, really, their fear, right? Okay? Of course, they're going to prepare, right? But will their preparation be effective? We're hopeful, right? Can they really prepare to face the crisis? It seems to me nowadays, nobody can give a positive answer right now in China or outside of China. China is really has been sabotaged, been hijacked by the Chinese Communist Party. Now, at this stage, the party, lies about anything and everything to disguise, to deceive, to mislead, right? From the truth about the pandemic to the truth of the flood. Yeah? They lie about everything. Okay? Nobody can turn the tides around. Nobody can save China now, okay? Really, So obviously, many people in China and outside of China all realize, that this is the reality. But maybe there's just some few top Chinese government officials, communist leaders. They seem to unable to be they seem to be unable to understand this. Maybe they pretend to be not incapable of understanding this, in my opinion. Okay. First, let's look at the six preparedness or six preparations, or the six strategies, or to me, there are really six crises here. Right? First one, the worsening of U.S.-China relationship, or escalation of the confrontation with the U.S. This is for sure, and this is happening. I don't think there's anything that Chinese can do to prevent this or prepare for this. Right? They were hoping Trump will lose the election. Maybe, maybe they can have a Biden that's not so harsh on China. But that's just their wishful thinking. Right? Now, nowadays, I believe the CCP, they probably give up on that hope. They know Trump probably will be re-elected. Right? As to the internal market, the world market, that's being shrinking. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and not just U.S., European countries worldwide, we're seeing the threat, the more pandemic, affections and death, and there is a move, a shift of a supply chain from China to outside of China, and there's nothing the Chinese can do about it. Right? China cannot, absorb or take in all those foreign investment as they did before. They cannot lure or deceive the international capital market capitals anymore. Right? The so-called China market is now deemed to be just a big bubble. Okay? As to the CCP virus, the COVID-19 CCP virus and the pandemic, and also the coexistence of this virus with human being, and the second wave of the pandemic, and that's really something that the people of the world should worry about. Yeah. I believe that we need to worry about that, and also we need to worry about the moral issues, behind that, behind all those. Right? But now, the Chinese government, though, on the other hand, they have more to worry than other countries of the world. They have one more thing to worry. That is, all those countries are actually trying to sue China for its behavior, bad behavior, for its cover up. There are many lawsuits from private citizens to organizations to countries, to try to settle this debt with the Chinese government. Now we have seen that many Chinese virologists, many of them, not the top ones, top virologists are defecting to US, and they are revealing the true nature and the truth and secrets of Chinese term warfare. Right? And China will have to face even bigger pressure on that. As to the US dollar hegemon, and also the delinking of US dollars and the Chinese dollar, or unpegging of Chinese dollar, US dollars, and get rid of the US dollar hegemon, that's their dream. Right? And delinking between US dollar and Chinese dollar, that's a nightmare. Yeah? I think US dollar's hegemon is expected to be there for a long time to come. And after the Chinese Communist regime is gone, I think it's going to be even stronger. Okay? As to the delinking or unpegging between US dollars and Chinese dollars, I have talked about this in other articles and before. I think this is probably going to take place after the unpegging of Hong Kong dollars and US dollars, as I said earlier, right? And this could happen when there's a war, truly, or a financial war between US and China. Yeah. But the problem is, maybe before the war on finance breaks out, I think the Chinese regime probably not there anymore, gone anymore. But the next thing about the food shortage, worldwide global food shortage, and that's very likely. I'm afraid, actually, I'm concerned about this. We have seen that for China, and there's a huge flood, across many provinces in China along the Yangtze River. We have seen that, right? And there will be, uh, poor harvest this summer, that's for sure. And also other countries, neighboring China, are also at the same time limiting their exports of food, to China. So really, the Chinese government will see, or people of China, they will see a food shortage for sure. A global food shortage, I think, is looming. But even though U.S. may be an exception, right? We have so many food and so many, so much, so big of agricultural sector, and but even so, for U.S. to help other parts of the world, to help other countries, including China, it's probably not something that the U.S. can do because it takes time to grow all those food to feed the people in other countries. As to the global terrorist groups, the Chinese term in Chinese term, the global terrorist group is not the true global terrorist group that we are talking about. The extreme, Islamic extremist group, terrorist group. Chinese is actually Chinese government itself. The Chinese Communist government, the CCP, in itself is the real global threat, global terrorist group. Okay? What the Chinese government was referring to is actually the Uyghurs in China, in Xinjiang, autonomous zone in Xinjiang, and also maybe its potential cooperation between Uyghurs in China and East Turkestan, movement. That's what the Chinese government was concerned about. Yeah. But if the collapse of Chinese regime leads to independence of many provinces in China, and which is likely, and people in China will probably have much more other things to worry about than the independence or separate secession of Xinjiang. Okay, so basically, the six preparedness you know, proposed by the Chinese government officials, high-ranking officials, actually shows that they're facing six major crises. From the diplomacy, economy, finance, public health, food, and to social crisis. Okay? It's everywhere. Right? And also, when the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that what he said, seemed to show that China is shrinking, is retracting a little bit, is begging, and means they don't have too much, a card to play against US. And so that is a good thing. Okay? That's all I have for this episode of Opinions New by Dr. Frank Tianshi. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye.